Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and welcome back to the Shuckle Premier League. This is a VGC draft league featuring 20 prominent content creators and players across singles as well as VGC. This upload will contain 2 different battles, one against Sierra Dawn for week 4 and one against Keely for week 5. Sierra and I had to delay our battle a little bit, so I figured I would combine both of the uploads into one video this week to get you all caught up with the league, and as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the standings going into week 4 and then week 5 after the week 4 battle is done. But if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the matchup and the prep that I put in for both of my opponents as well in this video. So thank you so much as always for coming out and joining and supporting the Melbourne Rotoms. It's been really fun to play in Draft League again. I'm still learning a lot and really getting familiar with the setting, but definitely fun to, just try a new VGC environment and get back into Draft League. So without further ado, let's get kicked off with week 4. Coming into week 4, we are currently in 5th place in the league. There are 20 teams as a reminder, and the top 4 teams get a round 1 bye in the playoffs. The top 12 teams make the playoffs, and if you get to 4 wins out of 8 weeks, then you are, I believe, guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. And so we are in a decent position right now. Every week really counts though, and we had a really close loss against Joey, of course, in week 1, and had some good bounce back victories against Kyle as well as Moxie in weeks 2 and 3. So this week we are taking on Sierra and the Toronto Maple Muse. So coming into this week, I think there are a lot of different things that we have to be prepared for, and Sierra's team is really scary on paper. The first Pokemon to call out is just Ogerpon. This is, of course, a really solid Pokemon both offensively and defensively, and I'm a little bit nervous because, first of all, it gives immunity to Sleep Powder from Vivillon with its grass typing, and it can also Water Terra to not only, of course, do more damage, but also get a special defense boost, making Spectra a little bit less effective. And so I think Ogerpon also can run a bunch of different sets, right? Obviously, you can go Follow Me, Spiky Shield, and then you can go for example, just your classic Ivy Cudgel and a grass type attack. Focus Energy is something that I think would also make sense coming into this week because I, of course, have double Intimidate plus Grimmsnarl as well. Ogerpon can be really defensive. It can be really fast as well. So a lot of different things to cover for from that Pokemon. Chi-Yu and Roaring Moon, also 2 really scary Pokemon because they're both dark types, which threaten Cresselia and Spectria pretty significantly, and so I have to really cover for those. There's also ways to deny my Trick Room, right? Indeedee Male here can go for Imprison plus Trick Room to stop Cresselia from Trick Rooming. Gallade is a Pokemon that can get access to Trick Room and reverse it by itself as well, and so those are all things that we're going to want to show some respect to. And then finally, there's the Corviknight. I think Corviknight's actually the Pokemon I'm maybe most worried about because I don't have a ton of reliable ways to just immediately knock it out, right? If you look at my team, like Pokemon like Wo-Chan and Enamorus basically don't really do anything into Corviknight, and it's part of the reason why I'm dropping them this week. But in general, Corv is just really, really bulky and can soak up a lot of damage. You can also wall Ursaluna, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But Corviknight in general, I think, is a Pokemon that can potentially just set up in front of us. I have to respect sets like Iron Defense or Bulk Up, for example, and it's a Pokemon that I think can just really soak up damage and apply a lot of pressure afterwards. So coming into this week, there are a couple things that I really, really want to think about. I want to think about how I can deal damage into Corviknight specifically, and so I've come up with a couple of solutions. The first is one that I think is going to be potentially interesting if I execute it, which is Gravity on Cresselia with Min Speed Crest, plus Ursaluna with speed investment to outspeed my Cresselia, so underspeed it. I should say outspeed it outside of Trick Room and underspeed it under Trick Room. The idea behind this is Cresselia can just get Gravity up, and then Ursaluna immediately will be able to retaliate with an Earthquake as well. I'm going for Earthquake here instead of the Headlong Rush because I think it's really important to be able to cover for Follow Me from Ogerpon, right? Imagine it's Ogerpon plus Corviknight. Well, this strategy doesn't work as effectively because you can, of course, just go for Follow Me to redirect a Headlong Rush away. And so the idea behind this is, well, I can just cover for Corviknight. Corviknight and Ogerpon are the 2 main defensive tools that Sierra has that I think Ursaluna will struggle against, and so I also have Flying Terra Blast. Now, Facade, obviously, if I'm burnt, will be able to just absolutely crush Ogerpon, but I thought about Flying Terra Blast because the idea behind this is I can lead Ursaluna and just go Flying Terra Blast immediately into Ogerpon, even without the Guts boost, unless she's like, max HP, max defense. I have a super, super good chance of just getting a one-hit knockout with this combo, and so, yeah, the idea behind this is it gives me more coverage into Ogerpon. It's also not a terrible defensive Terra here, like, Electric, of course, and Rock and Ice are scary types to go up against, but she doesn't really have too much other than Regieleki. And, in what scenario are we going to have Flying Terra Ursaluna outside of Trick Room against Regieleki? That probably is not going to come up very frequently, so I don't mind this even as a defensive Terra. So that was the first solution I had against Corviknight. The second is Spectrier with Life Orb. Coming into this week, obviously I can consider other Spectrier sets as well, for example, Grimmsnarl Spectrier, but I don't love Grimmsnarl Spectrier in this matchup because there's Roaring Moon and Chi-Yu, right? There's also Indeedee to block potential Fake Out, there's also Ogerpon. So if I go Grim Spectrier, there's a lot that can go wrong for me immediately, whether it be Roaring Moon just fighting super offensively, right? I think the other thing with the Nasty Plot Spectrier is I often want to run Draining Kiss, but then I'm kind of forced to Terra immediately. And then the problem is with redirection support from Ogerpon, if you're super specially defensive Ogerpon, even if I get a Nasty Plot off and I go Fairy, Terra, Draining Kiss, Ogerpon could just Terra, follow me, soak up that damage, and then Spectrier might just get knocked out, right? So I just don't love Grimmsnarl Spectrier here, and I don't love Setup Spectrier either. Instead, what I'm opting for is a really offensive Life Orb Spectrier. The idea behind this is I'll be able to go for attacks like Snarl, and the Snarl's nice into Indeedee in particular, because otherwise Indeedee actually can wall us with its normal typing. And then I've also got Shadow Ball. Life Orb, Shadow Ball, Modest from Spectrier should just be really, really good into Corviknight, and so I think this will be really valuable if I'm able to knock out all of Sierra's Pokemon other than Corviknight and then conserve Spectrier until the end. And then ultimately, I wanted a Terra option that could just one-shot Chi-Yu, and so I was thinking between Water Terra as well as Ground Terra and Fighting Terra. I ultimately opted for Fighting Terra here because it also allows me to hit Roaring Moon for super effective damage, and so this gives me a potential to just surprise either Pokemon and one-shot them immediately with Life Orb, Fighting Terra, Terra Blast. And so that's the idea behind this Spectrier set. To round things out, we've got Torracat. I haven't really brought Torracat out in the league, but I figured it makes sense this week because, first of all, Intimidate's good into Roaring Moon, and this also gives me Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, and Overheat into Corviknight. Like I mentioned, I'm really worried about Corviknight this week, so I want as many answers as possible. I'm running U-Turn here over something like Fake Out or Parting Shot, mainly because I value getting damage off with Torracat to break potential Focus Sashes on things like Regieleki, Indeedee, and Chi-Yu, so having that U-Turn allows me to chip them substantially and also break through the Sash. And part of the idea behind this is maybe there's a world in which I lead Torracat, Cresselia, U-Turn Trick Room immediately, get Ursaluna out, and just start playing the game from there. For the final option, I opted for Paldean Aqua Tauros here, and this is a Choice Scarf variant. The idea behind Choice Scarf is unless you are also Choice Scarf Max Speed Chi-Yu, the Tauros will be able to outpace you. That's a really big deal because, of course, it gets the one-hit knockout with moves like Wave Crash or Close Combat. I'm actually opting for a Ground Terra set here with Bulldoze and Earthquake as well, and the idea behind Ground Terra is, first of all, this gives me an immunity into Regieleki. It also means I can lead something like Tauros plus Vivian and just go Bulldoze into Sleep Powder immediately, right? Vivian's not the fastest Pokemon, but when you're able to drop your opponent's speed immediately with that Bulldoze, suddenly Vivian actually will outpace most things from the opposing side, and so this allows me to have another flexible lead of Tauros plus Vivian coming into this week. Vivian's the final Pokemon here, and I opted for a set without Tailwind this week. I actually want Hurricane, Sleep Powder, U-Turn, and Protect. The idea behind U-Turn is I can also lead Vivian Cresselia into something like Indeedee Gallade, and with this, I can pressure Sleep Powder, I can pressure Hurricane, or I can pressure U-Turn immediately. I think Vivian is actually a really, really good option this week, and as soon as I looked at the matchup, I was like, I think I need it because Sierra has Water Ogerpon, and so Vivian obviously threatens with a ton of damage with that Hurricane as well, and there actually aren't many Hurricane resistances on the opposing side other than that Corviknight, and so Vivian can just do really consistent damage across the board. But with Dark Terra and U-Turn, this gives me an answer into expanding Force Spam from Indeedee. It allows me to break Focus Sash as well, and allows me to U-Turn while Trick Rooming immediately. Part of what I want to do in this game is just get Ursaluna out under Trick Room as quickly as possible, and so with double U-Turns from Torracat and Vivian, this will definitely be helpful in enabling it. Otherwise, for Cresselia, pretty standard set of Gravity, Trick Room, Moonblast, and Lunar Blessing. Gravity, of course, is the main tricklet we have up our sleeve this week, but I think Lunar Blessing always just a consistent move. And for offense, I think Moonblast makes sense here because it forces the Terra out of Roaring Moon. If Roaring Moon doesn't Terra, I can just get knocked out by it. So yeah, I think with this, I have a lot of different lead combos, right? I can go Vivian Cresselia. I can even lead Ursaluna if I think she's going to index heavily on leading that Water Ogerpon, for example. I can go Torracat Cresselia, Tauros plus Vivian, Spectrier plus Vivian, Tauros plus Spectrier, for example. So I think I at least have ways to deal with all of the potential Pokemon on her end, and that's all I can really ask for. So that's going to be it for a breakdown this week. Okay, so everything here I expected. I think the only thing is no Indeedee, which I actually thought would be here. So it's Ghost Chi-Yu, Fairy Roaring Moon, Poison Corviknight, Bug Regieleki, Water Gallade. Okay. I'm actually kind of surprised to see a Lecky here. Because, yeah, I was thinking, we could definitely go Trick Room in this one and then go Gravity. So one of the leads I had come up with was Gravity Cresselia, Ursaluna in the back. And then Spectrier in the back as a late game cleanup. Think I'm down to try this out. Okay, let's lock it in. Tauros can work. It depends on how fast Regieleki is. Because we are max speed on the Tauros. She should also know the ground Terra here, so she might be a little bit worried. But yeah, it's like max speed Regieleki is still faster than Scarf Tauros, right? So that's something to be aware of. I think Corviknight, of course, being one of the problem Pokemon here. But yeah, the idea I had come up with is if I use Vivian, I can threaten with the Focus Sash, like I threaten Sleep Powder. Dark Terror here on Crest helps against Chiyu Roaring Moon combo. I don't think Aleki is actually that scary, but we'll see if it ends up being brought out here. It's going to be Gallade Ogerpon. Okay, that's fine by me. So a couple of options here. I obviously have Hurricane immediately here, which is kind of nice. I can angle to just U-turn Trick Room turn 1 here. That's definitely a possibility. I don't hate going for Hurricane here, but I think U-turn is also okay. I'm mainly curious what Gallade wants to do here. I want to quickly pull up its moveset. See. It does get imprisoned, so I'm gonna guess that it wants to imprison me right now. This could Spiky Shield. Honestly, I think turn 1 I'm down to go for Hurricane and Moonblast into the Gallade. Her best bet is to actually go for Water Terra here, but no Terra. Vivian's faster as well. Whoa. Okay, good information. It's crit Vivian. Gotcha. That makes sense. Misty Terrain to prevent Flame Orb and Sleep Powder. That's cool. Okay. That is a very creative solution around Ursaluna here, but we do get a knockout onto Gallade immediately. So Ogerpon being slower than Vivian is a big deal. I can't Sleep Powder now. I think she probably wants to just go Water Terra here with Ogre. And maybe start clicking Ivy Cudgel. Since I can't Sleep Powder right now. It's a shame that we just missed out the knockout there. Roaring Moon comes out, okay. So the thing with Moon coming out is you can only Terra one of these two. So I threaten with super effective Moonblast as well as super effective Hurricane, right? Which is a pretty big deal. This is going to be Fairy Roaring Moon, okay. Obviously, it threatens with Tailwind. I could still set up Trick Room. I think our goal should be to eliminate Ogerpon ASAP. Thinking about going for a Hurricane onto Ogerpon here. I'm threatened by knockoff right now, so I can think about tearing the Cresselia. If I Terra Crest, I can't Terra these, obviously. Okay, Hurricane into Ogerpon. Leaning towards Trick Rooming here. No Terra. Wait, everything is so slow on her end, okay? Ogre takes a lot. Knockoff comes out into Crest. We survive. Let's see if it's a double up into that slot. It is, okay. Yeah, the speed stats are just kind of what shocks me here. But this is not bad, right? I can get the Spectre in for free now. I wonder if that was a... Like, I think if I Terra Crest there, we would survive knockoff, and then I would have just been able to Moonblast Roaring Moon. So maybe it's worth considering. I think I'm okay to bring out Spectre right now. I could also just bring out Ursa. Ursa's not going to do a ton of damage right now, but it can get me burst damage onto the Roaring Moon. Enough where maybe a Terra Blast or Shadow Ball can finish it off. Tauros actually would have been pretty good to have here in the back, so maybe that's something to work. Like, Vivillon being faster than everything is shocking me, but I think that's a really big deal. I'll bring out Ursa here. Knowing that we have the speed advantage right now, I think I can leverage this to my advantage. One of the things to think about is Misty Terrain also expiring soon. By the way, in the next game, like, I can consider Sleep Powder turn 1 into the Gallade slot. I do have U-turn here, which would allow me to pivot in Spectrier while also getting damage onto Moon. But I think here I'm leaning towards just Hurricaning into Ogerpon. Hurricane into Ogerpon and Earthquake. Earthquake covers for a potential switch out. I don't know if Ogre has Spiky here. I'm actually going to go Facade. Okay, Ogre finally Spiky Shields. That's fine. Hurricane into Spiky. Knock off into Vivillon. Yep. Facade. Just under half. 2 turns of Misty Terrain left. So I get a free Hurricane into the Ogerpon slot. I could also U-turn here, which allows me to pivot out. Just worried about eating up another knockoff onto this slot. But why not just Hurricane, Flying Terra, Terra Blast right now? I feel like that's pretty strong, right? But I guess it could be a Scarf option in the back. Yeah, I just don't think I want to U-turn out and then lose something for no reason, so I'm down a Hurricane here into Ogerpon. Earthquake. Okay, Ogre pivots. Makes sense for this to be Corviknight? Yeah. Okay. Knock off again. I'm glad I didn't U-turn out there. Okay, so Corviknight was always kind of the scary Pokemon in this matchup, but Life Orb, Spectre, Shadow Ball should do really meaningful damage. It's also lefty's Corviknight. Now I get Spectre out. Fighting Terra. We're weak to Brave Bird. Corviknight here. I don't think it'll KO us. So I think Spectre can just target Roaring Moon right now. Get a knockout with Shadow Ball. And then I will Facade into Corv. What Terra is she again? Poison, that's fine. Yeah, Shadow Ball into you, Facade into you. So, Ivy Cudgel, Spiky Shield, Focus Energy Ogerpon. Ursa ended up not being a very strong bring for us, so that's one thing to think about dropping as well. It's just Iron Head, that's fine. Okay, we take less than half, which is huge. Facade won't do much, but Misty Terrain's about to expire, so once Flame Orb activates, like, the Facades actually start dishing out more damage, which is important. Okay. I think my main fear right now would be Tailwind. I feel like if you had Tailwind, that last turn was the turn to do it, though, honestly. Should survive another Brave Bird plus Life Orb combo here on Spectrier. My Flying Terra here on Ursa. I definitely want to respect Tailwind on Corviknight right now. I think she's run that in the past, right? Yeah. I do have a +1 Life Orb Shadow Ball right now into Corv. I think I could also Protect here. Protect Facade into Corv is an option. I could also Terra. I don't need a Terra at Spectrier, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm down for this. Maybe Shadow Ball Facade double into Ogre was also okay. Question is whether or not it's a Spiky Shield this turn. We want to see Spiky Shield, ideally. So Spectre protects. Nice. That's huge. Okay. I guess unless it's Tailwind. Beautiful. Ironhead. Okay, cool. I think that should put us in really good shape. Facade should do meaningful damage here, too. That is no joke. Nice. The question here is whether or not Corviknight has Protect. No Terra committed on her end, right? Like, I could lose to double Protect, but I don't think you're knocking out Spectre anyway, honestly. I think it's fine to just Shadow Ball Ogre Pawn here and Facade into Corv. Okay, she doesn't go for the double, so I'm glad I didn't overread it there either. Nice. Ogre feints. Definitely some shocking stats, though. I think Vivian, I was never expecting to outpace everything. My game plan was to set up Trick Room in this, but it ends up being very different. It's going to be Roost coming out here, but that's fine. Like, Spectre is boosted up enough where a +2 Shadow Ball. I mean, look how much Facade does there as well, right? So, I was earlier saying, like, Ursaluna wasn't very good here, but it actually ends up being quite useful here in the end, although I wonder if I had a different Terra. Like, my whole idea of dealing with Corviknight was to, of course, get the Gravity up and then take care of it, but yeah. No need to reveal anything else. Especially not that Terra Blast. But Life Orb Spectre, I had theoried, and I'm glad it ended up paying off really heavily here, so I'm just curious about the items and the speed stats. Yeah. But, okay. We get a victory to start, which is good. So she went with, what? Ogre Pawn, Glade, Roaring Moon, Corviknight. Now, in this situation, she saw that my Vivian was faster than everything, right? So, if you're in her shoes, you probably want to adjust and bring that Regieleki instead. So, I'm thinking I can maybe bring out my Tauros. That's an option. Like, I think, yeah, Aleki lead here makes sense. Chi-Yu didn't come out, which I was also really surprised by. Like, I think Aleki Chi-Yu is an adaptation. The thing about Aleki Chi-Yu, though, is I can just go for my Rage Powder into Trick Room play, which was kind of the initial idea behind this concept. Then I just bring out Ursaluna, and then I just Gravity Earthquake. So I might still be okay going Vivian Cress. What else would be scary? I guess like Aleki Glade, but if it's Aleki Glade, I pressure with Sleep Powder immediately and Hurricane. The question is whether or not she brings Gallade again, right? Gallade is Terra Water. So I don't actually have a ton to take advantage of that, but it's okay. I think I'm down for the same lead, honestly, because I think this actually, like, I think we ran in, I wouldn't say the worst case scenario. I think Chiyu into this actually is a little bit scary. But once again, I think, how does it deal with Rage Powder Trick Room turn 1? Right, that was like one of the whole ideas behind my tech this week. I could drop Spectrier instead for like Tauros. But I think Spectrier, like, I felt like was necessary as a way to deal with Corviknight in the late game. So I'm actually willing to go with the same stuff because I think there's still some strategies that I didn't reveal from game 1. But let's take a deep breath. Draft League is stressful, honestly, because it's like you spend so much time coming up with these ideas, and then now it's like, okay, it's time to execute them, but then like you might run into total surprises. Like at every turn, you might run into something new. Being up a game, you never want to take for granted, right? Like, but you got to win 2 games at the end of the day. So we just got to do our best. Let's see what we face off against. Ogerpon, Roaring Moon. Okay. The Roaring Moon also just like never protected in that last game. But yeah, the fact it's attack booster, which I should have noted. I just figured even with attack booster it would still be faster than me, right? But it's Roaring Moon plus Ogre. Moon never protected in the last game. We never saw a Tailwind either. I'm like low-key contemplating just Sleep Powdering into it on turn 1. And Moonblasting it. This is risky, obviously, because she could just go for the obvious follow me, but I don't know. It's like I've been willing to click Hurricane so often. So I'm actually thinking, yeah, Sleep Powder plus Moonblast, especially because this Roaring Moon didn't protect previously. It is going to be a Terra commit, but who is Terraing? I'd be happy with... Actually, either Terraing here is fine. It is going to be Moon Terraing, okay? So Fairy Terra committed immediately. I think this is a big plus for her since she didn't get a Terra off that last game. Okay, no Spiky Shield from Ogerpon, but no Follow Me either, so what's most important here is we do get the Sleep Powder off immediately. Cool. And it's just IB Cudgel here, okay. Get Moonblast off. Now what do I want to do? I think the goal should be to set up Trick Room and get Ursaluna out under Trick Room. The problem is with Vivillon being faster, like, I want to U-turn out and then just bring out Ursa. I think it's worth considering, because it's like the odds of her getting a 1-turn wake are slim. I think the main scary thing here is... So I think Ogerpon Spiky Shielding here makes the most sense, right? So the play I'm thinking about is U-turn into Roaring Moon and Trick Room. If I do this, I get Ursaluna out under Trick Room with Ogerpon having Spiky Shield. I can just find Terra Blast next turn. That feels really strong. But there is a good bit that could go wrong for us here, i.e. Roaring Moon wakes up immediately. Ogerpon doesn't Spiky Shield. But I think I'm willing to take these odds. Okay, Ogerpon doesn't Spiky Shield, though. So this is where it's a little bit scary, because maybe I end up... Like, I know I can survive an Ivy Cudgel here with Ursaluna, so I'm still going to go into it. The question is, does Moon wake up, and if so, where does it target? Okay, it stays asleep. That's huge. Ideally, this is Cudgel into Crest. Okay, goes into Ursa, but that's fine. That did a lot more than I expected. It's probably like max HP, max attack Ogerpon. Wow. Okay. I've got Lunar Blessing here. I can Flying Terra Blast Ogerpon, Lunar Blessing. She's making really aggressive reads. I think there, you know, I easily could have just gone Hurricane Moonblast, double up into Ogre, and that would have been a really good trade for us. But I was willing to take that back because I figured if this Spiky Shields, like, this is just a game-winning play on the spot. And we ended up surviving anyway, but wow, that Cudgel did more than I anticipated for sure. I think now this Spiky Shielding or switching out makes sense, but she might just attack with both, honestly. Okay, I'm gonna go Flying Terra Blast, and heal up. One thing to be careful about here is I actually don't have a lot of damage into Ogerpon after this turn, so like what we're hoping for is for Roaring Moon to like no spiky shield, get the knockout. Okay, no spiky shield, that's good. So we'll cleanly knock out the Ogerpon. And if Moon stays asleep here, then things are looking totally fine. Cures the burn, but I calc this so that it should still KO, I think. Even without Guts. Yeah. Okay. Does Moon stay asleep now is the question. It does wake up, okay. But knock off into Cress. Cool. And we survive. That's huge. Nice. Now, if Corviknight comes out, which I would expect it to, I get to use my trick, which is Gravity Earthquake. So let's see if it's Corv coming out. It is. Okay. Well, this was what I had planned for. So here's Earthquake. Here's Gravity. I think I just send it here, right? Let's actually think about this a little bit. There's still 3 turns of Trick Room. I could also Gravity here, sacrifice. But I think I'm okay just going Gravity Earthquake. The scary thing here would be if I was undersped for some reason, under Trick Room. Okay, everyone falls. Literally everyone except for Roaring Moon. Nice, we outpace. There's that Earthquake. Yes! That was my whole game plan. Oh, it worked. It worked. This game was scary, though. Like, Ursa hanging on with just a sliver of HP from that Ivy Cudgel. I gotta calc it afterwards, because I don't... Did I calc against Advent Max? I feel like I might have been calcing against Jolly Max. But, yeah, my Gravity trick pays off. Corviknight was the main Pokemon that I felt like I needed to deal with this week, so that worked out perfectly. And now I can bring out Vivillon. Let's see what the last one is. And yeah, the speed IVs this week were intentional just for that interaction. So she used the last one. No Terra. This is Ghost Chi-Yu. 2 turns of Trick Room, 4 turns of Gravity. I don't want to Earthquake because I'll hit myself. But Terra's already been committed, so we can just Facade into the Chi-Yu here. And Hurricane into it. We'll see if it's Focus Sash here. If not, we'll just KO it. Okay, Chi-Yu does have Protect. I theoretically could still lose this, actually. If this is Safety Goggles Chi-Yu. I feel like if it were Goggles, it would have come out way earlier on in this, so yeah. Right now, if you're a Sierra, you go for a double Protect. We'll just Facade again. Is there any merit, actually, to ever switching out into Spectre immediately here? I don't think so. If I switch, then I have it out on the field, and it's Spectre or Vivillon, but, like, she could choose to just attack here. So I think we always just Facade into Chi-Yu. If it's Safety Goggles, say they failed the double, we just get the KO. I think I'm fine clicking Hurricane here. Yeah. Okay, doesn't get the double. Nice. Okay, let's see if it were Focus Sash, though. I'm curious. It wasn't. Okay, nice. So I wonder what the item on it was, but yeah, in my opinion, like I think game 1 was a total surprise in the sense that I was not expecting to be faster with Vivillon into Ogerpon and the Roaring Moon, but I'm really glad I ended up investing in max speed there. I was like, I'm going to invest in max speed in case for some reason your Indy is a little bit slower, but yeah, it ends up outpacing Ogerpon and Roaring Moon, which was a huge, huge plus, and then like Vivillon was really important this week, I felt like, because I was really worried about Ogerpon, and yeah, Vivillon was able to put in a ton of work here, and so I'm just really glad that my Gravity trick paid off, like the whole like underspeed with Cresselia, so that I set up Gravity into Ursaluna getting the one-hit KO, and I figured if I ran something like, you know, like Electric Terra, Fire Terra on Ursaluna, it might have been too obvious into Corviknight, but I figured the Gravity combo might be a little bit harder to predict for. And then, yeah, like, it just instantly won us that game. So, I think in this game, it was a little bit scary because, like, Ogerpon almost knocked out Ursaluna on the switch in. You know, turn 1, I took a risk of Sleep Powdering as well. But I figured because I was clicking Hurricane so much in the last game, like, would you actually go for a Follow Me when you're facing Hurricane plus Moonblast as the combo? And yeah, I think Vivillon put in a lot of work work here. Like, I'm really happy about its performance, and I mainly brought it for the Ogre Pawn, and, you know, once again, the general idea was U-turn with Vivian into Ogre Pawn so that I could set up the Trick Room. Also, I think in game 2, I, like, didn't have to take that risk of U-turning, right? Like, I could have just gone Hurricane Moonblast into Ogre. Even if Ogre spikies, you burn another turn of sleep, but then, next turn I can just Hurricane Moonblast again. So it might have actually been a little bit aggressive on my end, but in my head, I was like, look, I think, like, Spiky Shield here is definitely a possibility, and if it ends up being Spiky Shield and I U-turn and get Trick Room up, I think the game is just, like, over on the spot, essentially, because then it's, like, Ursaluna under Trick Room. I can then just go for the Facade into the Ogre Pawn slot, set up Gravity with Cresselia, and then just start spamming Earthquake. I don't think there's really much of a way to handle that. So yeah, I'm glad that the Vivian paid off in the end here, and I think that was actually the key piece to winning this week. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much, as always, for joining me, and thank you to Sierra for the games. I am definitely happy to move on to 3-1 in the league. This means that we are 1 win away from guaranteeing the playoffs, and we have 4 weeks left. So definitely don't want to, you know, take this position for granted. In addition, I think I'm really happy to have gotten a win in this week in particular, because I actually think Sierra's team was the one I was most scared of in the first 4 weeks of this league, mainly because it felt like she just had a lot of Pokemon that matched up fairly well into ours. Vivian was definitely a huge MVP for us in that set, but I'm also happy for, like, Life Orb Spectre to do a ton of damage, as well as not falling into the trap of using, you know, Screen's Grimmsnarl this week against the Focus Energy Ivy Cudgel combo that ended up coming out. And then, of course, we got to feature Gravity plus Earthquake in that final game, which felt really good. Game 2, by the way, super, super close. Totally could have gone another way if, for example, Ivy Cudgel gets a higher roll or crits me in that position. I was definitely taking some risks, and they were calculated risks, but Sierra, I think, did a really good job of not falling into the trap of just, like, losing the game immediately when I was taking these positions. And yeah, it was just so close, right? If, like, Ursaluna isn't able to survive, if Cresselia doesn't get that Gravity up, I think this game looks really, really different. But ultimately, we were able to find a win, and that feels good. So yeah, that is going to conclude it for week 4. Thanks so much, as always, for joining me and the Melbourne Road Toms, and we'll see you in the next week. Welcome to week 5 of the SPL. This is a double week upload, so the first half of the video featured week 4 against Sierra, and now we are playing week 5 against Keely, and we're all caught up in the league. We are currently 3-1 coming into this week, and a win actually secures a spot in the playoffs, and so there's definitely a lot on the line riding for us, and we're up against Keely this week. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the standings as well as the team and the matchup, but if you want to just skip to those games, check out the timestamps down below. And thanks so much, as always, for joining me and supporting the Melbourne Road Toms and the Draft League journey in general. I hope it's been content that you've been finding enjoyable and fun to watch outside of just our regular scheduled VGC content. So thanks so much, and let's get started. So coming into this week, we're currently the highest 3-1 team. I started the league, of course, with a loss against Joey, but we've bounced back with 2-0 wins in back-to-back-to-back weeks, which feels good, and that's good for 3rd place. If you get to 4 wins, you secure a spot in that top 12, which means, of course, you guarantee the playoffs, which is really nice. So a win this week would, of course, be very, very nice for us. We're going to be taking on Keely and the Vancouver Vaporeons. Keely is currently in 15th place with a 1-3 record, but it's really important to remind yourself that it's so easy to move up and down in these rankings, right? A single loss can just drop you down like 4 or 5 spots, and a win can really move you up 4 or 5 spots as well. And so that's why I don't want to focus too much on, like, where I'm placed, and more just focus on each individual week and just trying to do the best job possible, right? Some things are in your control, some things are not in your control, but what is in your control is your prep and your, you know, play against your opponent. So yeah, but either way, we've definitely bounced back after a really close loss against Joey, and I'm not surprised to see him here, you know, as one of the top 2 seeds, still undefeated in the league as well. So let's talk about this matchup. So coming into this week, I think if you look at Keely's team, it feels relatively mid-tier speed to fast, especially with Tornadus and Landorus. And what this means is I think Ursaluna under Trick Room should be quite powerful here. So that's one of my primary win conditions. Going for a relatively standard Ursaluna set here, but I've got Substitute. Sub, I think, will be really valuable to potentially set up as Trick Room is expiring to get some extra mileage out from Ursaluna. I'm opting for a Mentor Cresselia here just to cover for Taunt from Tornadus, for example, and I also have a good amount of special attack investment. This allows me to deal really significant damage into things like Tornadus and Ice Beam with the special attack investment. One-shots Landorus Incarnate if they have no bulk, which I think is also really handy. The classic Grimmsnarl Spectre, I think, actually does work this week with dual screens from Grim as well as Spirit Break. Spirit Break here over something like Sucker Punch, mainly because there is, of course, Serena with anti-block with its ability. Parting Shot here I still like in the off chance that, like, Serena isn't led, for example. I can go Grim Cresselia and then Parting Shot into Trick Room immediately on turn 1, which I think is a pretty powerful option. So that's actually, like, one of the main strategies and main leads I think could work this week. Spectre, I think, is also really powerful here, and I think that the classic Nasty Plot set actually is fine here, mainly because if you look at Keely's team, she has no immunities to Ghost or Resistances, and so a Shadow Ball here, if I get to +2, should be able to just one-shot a lot of things, and it can snowball out of control. Now, so far, things have been relatively standard from the 4 that I've listed. I do have some text like Sub on Ursaluna, as well as Electric Terra and Ice Beam and Offense on Cresselia, but I think the Tauros and the Enamorus allow for some new dimensions to potentially catch Keely off guard. So the idea behind Polday and Tauros here is that we're Choice Scarf, but I don't have a ton of speed investment because I have the Scarf, and the idea is with this speed investment, I'll be outpacing her fastest Pokemon if they don't have a Scarf or Tailwind up, and I'd be kind of surprised to see her prioritize Tailwind if she's facing off Trick Room, for example. So it allows me to invest a lot more in bulk. Water Terra allows me to potentially threaten one-hit knockouts onto things like Torn, Lando, Hisuian Arcanine, Sylveon, for example, and I also have Bulldoze here. Bulldoze plus Max Speed and Enamorus Therian is another lead combo that I could go with. The idea behind this is I can drop my opponent's speed immediately. The Enamorus here then will be able to outpace things like Baxcalibur, Hisuian Arcanine, Serena, Sylveon, Quaquaval, Typhlosion, and be able to just threaten them with damage, right? So I'm going for Max Speed Enamorus here, mainly because I don't want to be solely reliant on Trick Room. If I'm going all in on Trick Room, if Trick Room is denied, that can be really bad for me. So Max Speed Enamorus here should have a solid chance at outpacing things like Sylveon, for example, and Serena, and means that I don't necessarily need Trick Room in order for this Pokemon to thrive, which I think is important. And I'm running the Earth Power here as well to have coverage into the Hisuian Arcanine, because otherwise Hisuian Arcanine obviously is able to wall our Fairy type damage. And so Enamorus here can also just be a strong offensive pick into things like Tornadus early on and can dish out a lot of damage. And so, yeah, the general idea is like Trick Room should be really strong here, but in case I'm not able to get it up, I still have enough speed from things like Tauros, Spectre, as well as Enamorus to operate outside of Trick Room. So that's kind of how I thought about this week. Before we get started with the battles, I just wanted to quickly note that the commentary you're hearing is not live commentary while the battles actually took place. Unfortunately, I had some audio issues, but the video file was still okay, and so I decided rather than upload the games with just no commentary, rather I just want to still be able to offer my thought process and what I was thinking on a turn-to-turn basis. And so, yeah, but I do apologize that the normal live commentary is not the case for this one, but let's get started. So coming into team preview, first of all, we're given each other's Terra types. So I know Keely has Ghost Terra on Tornadus, Ghost Terra on Landorus, Stellar Terra on the Quaquaval, Ghost Terra on Sylveon, Flying Terra on Hisuian Sneasel, and Dark Terra on the Serena. So the triple Ghost Terra to me just seems very much as a countermeasure to Ursaluna, which I think makes a lot of sense. Flying Terra also a countermeasure to the Ursaluna. Stellar Terra just makes Quaquaval a offensive threat, right? I don't know what item it wants to run. It could run any combination of items like Focus Sash, Life Orb, Choice Scarf, Choice Band, for example, even Assault Vest. And so, yeah, I think like that's one Pokemon to pay attention to. But my game plan coming into the week is let me just set up Trick Room, right? Grim Crest, use Ursaluna under Trick Room, and that should put me in good shape. Also, because I have special attack investment on Cresselia, I should be able to do pretty meaningful damage with it into most of Keely's Pokemon, right? Like if you actually look at her team, 5 of the 6 Pokemon take super effective damage from Ice Beam or Psychic, and so offensive Crest here should be pretty powerful as well. So then I'm debating, okay, what do I want as my last Pokemon? Spectre I don't love, mainly because I don't think he has time to get a Nasty Plot off. I think Tauros is really, really strong because it's able to get the Intimidate and also just be able to outpace things. But of course it's going to be weak to Bleak Wind and Serena's Grass type attacks. And since I have this fast Enamorus set, and I want to figure out how fast it is relative to Sylveon as well as Serena, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to bring the Enamorus instead. But I think both are certainly viable in this matchup. And of course, the idea with draft is I want to bring 6 Pokemon that I think can play into the game, right? I don't want to just rely on the same 4. I think Spectre is bringable here as well. Like I could go Grim Spectre here, but ultimately I decide, you know what? I am going to go with the Enamorus instead. So it's going to be the Tornadus and the Serena lead here, which honestly is a little bit unexpected because it doesn't have a lot of damage output. But I'm like, okay, I should be able to set up screens here and set up Trick Room with Cresselia. I can also just start Ice Beaming here. And I click into my moves and I see that I have Fake Out instead of Spirit Break on Grimmsnarl, which is really, really bad. The idea was, of course, to have Spirit Break here. Fake Out, not a very good move when, of course, Keely has Serena with the Queenly Majesty blocking Fake Out. Now I have Fake Out and Parting Shot. I was okay having one of the two in a non-Serena situation, but having both of these when I was supposed to have Spirit Break means that I actually really can't do much after I set up screen. So that's totally on me. I should have double checked before seeing it going into the game. And so now I'm like, okay, I have to play with that in mind as well. Turn 1 here, I decided I'm not going to go for Trick Room because I think Ice Beam is actually pretty powerful, and I think I can actually stagger my Trick Room, right? First, I want to see if she even has Taunt to begin with, and Taunt is revealed immediately. But the idea here is there's not a lot of offense coming out from Keely's side right now, so what I think I can do is like chip away with a couple of Ice Beams, but she reveals the double Taunt, Tornadus Taunt and Serena Taunt, which I think is really brilliant. That is basically saying, I really, really don't want you to get Trick Room or any of your support moves up. The Ice Beam comes out, and it also doesn't do a ton of damage into Serena. It does definitely a lot less than I expected. I was expecting more in, I would say, the 45 to 50% range. Instead, that's more about a third, right? So to me, I'm like, okay, Serena's clearly very, very defensive here, especially defensive, but it also can't carry Assault Vest because it's running Taunt. So I'm already thinking, okay, that's really interesting. I don't get Trick Room up here on turn 1, but I still have a Cresselia with super effective damage with this Ice Beam into Keely's team, so it feels okay, right? Grimmsnarl now can just set up another screen. I really don't get any value out of Fake Out or the Parting Shot here, so once again, I'm like, oh, why didn't I double check and make sure I had Spirit Break? Spirit Break would just be obviously so much more handy right now, being able to dish out damage, but I'm going to set up that light screen now. And, you know, just reduce Bleakwind Storm's damage output as well. So Bleakwind comes out, and you can see it's barely denting us. So I'm like, okay, it's probably not the most offensive Tornadus either. Knockoff hits us, but we already don't have our Mental Orb, and Reflect is up, so it doesn't do that much to us. And then Ice Beam targets the Tornadus, and also does, like, an okay amount, but truthfully, I was expecting both of these Ice Beams to do over 50%. So I was like, Keely clearly has a lot of special bulk on both of her Pokemon. And now things are awkward because Grimmsnarl is stuck out on the field. I don't have that Spirit Break. If I did, I would probably just stay in and click Spirit Break, Ice Beam, double up into a slot. But the lack of Spirit Break means that I kind of have to go for a hard switch out here. And this is the awkward thing about Grimmsnarl, right? The good thing is we've set up screens, so a hard switch into an Enamorus is not the end of the world. I know I can take a double up into the slot, especially because like these Pokemon are just doing such little damage to us, right? So I was like, okay, you know, I can angle to get the Enamorus out. I can angle to dish out some more damage with Ice Beam, and then eventually Taunt will wear off, and then I can think about setting up Trick Room afterwards. But right now, Grimmsnarl has served its purpose. It has set up those screens. It is time to get it out of the field. Tornadus actually switches out here, so I think this makes sense. You probably just don't love clicking Bleakwind Storm when it's not doing very much damage, and Sylveon offers a lot more offensive pressure. So I think this is a very natural pivot. Grimmsnarl here is also going to make the pivot, and now we have Enamorus out. And of course, remember, I have max speed Enamorus this week, so part of my game plan was to make sure that I could, you know, confirm whether or not it's actually faster here. So Power Whip does okay damage, not a ton, and Ice Beam brings Serena pretty darn low. It looks like it might not be a 3-hit knockout. It's kind of close, and Taunt wears off now. So now I'm thinking, okay, Enamorus here should be able to just get the knockout onto the Serena, right? Like, I've got Life Orb, Dazzling Gleam. That should be fairly powerful here. And I've got screens up as well. And so I'm like, okay, Serena maybe goes for a Protect here. Maybe it switches out. It could, of course, just taunt Cresselia. I don't know actually exactly how much speed investment Serena has. And I'm debating it between, like, maybe going for Fairy Terra here. But I'm like, do I really need to? I think I can just go Dazzling Gleam, knock out Serena. If I'm faster and then I set up Trick Room, we should be in really, really good shape. The Dazzling Gleam here covers for Serena, maybe going for a Protect, for example, or switching out as well, and gets us some damage onto Sylveon, which should allow us to eventually get the knockout onto it as well. And so I'm like, okay, you know, I think I can just go for Dazzling Gleam here, and I can click Trick Room as well. Maybe Serena's faster than Enamorus, but then that's information that we get to confirm. That's fine with me. You get a taunt off, but then you're not doing anything with Serena otherwise. So I go for Gleam, and I'm like, oh, great, I'm faster than Serena. But the Serena hangs on, which is honestly on me. Like, I think it was a little overzealous to assume I would get that knockout, and I shouldn't have taken any risk. It obviously doesn't have that much HP left, but that could have been a Moonblast or a Fairy Terra. I think I was just like, do I need to commit these resources to do it? But I think Moonblast into the Serena is relatively safe because it's like, okay, then I eat up a Hyper Voice from the Sylveon, right? But that's fine. This turn actually sets me back really significantly because Cresselia not being able to heal back from Lunar Blessing when I have these turns of screens up is also really bad, right? So I'm like kicking myself because first of all, I brought the wrong Grimmsnarl set. It should be Spirit Break. And second of all, that turn could have been a Fairy Terra Gleam or a Moonblast, and both would have paid off really, really heavily for us and put us into like a super commanding position. So I'm like, okay, you know, I kind of have to just shake it off right now. That was a misplay on my end. There was really not much reason to go for that. Now I decide, okay, I'm going to switch Cresselia out. I know that Hyper Voice is not a 2-hit knockout onto an Enamorus. If I knock out your Serena here, Grimmsnarl's Fake Out actually becomes relevant, so I can make use out of this mistake that I have. Serena just goes for Protect, which I think is very smart from Keely's end. And Enamorus goes for a Dazzling Gleam. Now here I could have gone Fairy Terra Moonblast, for example, into Sylveon. I think that was a possibility, but I was like already taking so much damage with Enamorus. I don't love committing a Terra. And Hyper Voice now comes out, and we do hang on with both, but I'm taking so much damage at this point. Trick Room still isn't set up. Things are definitely getting a lot scarier, especially because Grimmsnarl here also can't attack into the Sylveon slot, right? I basically have to either give up Grim or hard switch it out once again. So the upside is Enamorus being able to outpace both of these, and I'm like, okay, the max speed Enamorus actually was a good idea, but my execution, so like the prep was actually great on that end, but my execution here was really poor, because I think like I tunneled a little bit into like thinking, oh, like I can save my Terra for Ursaluna, but I think basically I should be committing my tools into Enamorus or into Ursaluna, and Fairy Terra Enamorus was relatively safe, especially since I still had Light Screen set up. At this point, I'm like, okay, look, I at least know I still push out damage this turn. I don't want Sylveon to just knock both of my Pokemon out though, right? Because like everything is getting to the point where Hyper Voice is doing a ton. So I'm like, all right, it's time to swap Grimmsnarl out again, because if I give up both Pokemon, suddenly I'm left with like Cresselia plus Ursaluna, and then the Ursaluna Protect is so predictable that you can just double up into Crest, right? So Serena goes for a Protect here, and basically I could have Fairy Terra'd this entire time with Enamorus, and it may have even gotten me the knockout there, but I was like, is it worth Fairy Terraing to get the knockout if it gives her 2 free switch-ins, right? Because it'll be Torn plus something really powerful, and I think that's really, really scary to me. So I was like, okay, you know what? I don't think I should commit the Terra here. Sylveon goes for the Hyper Voice here, and with it being single target now, it does do pretty substantial damage into Ursaluna. So things are looking scary now. I can go into Grimmsnarl, which does give me a Fake Out, but does that Fake Out even knock out Sylveon, right? Because if not, then you just outpace my Ursaluna is just so slow here, right? So I'm like, okay, Cresselia is actually fairly good offensively into, we know the Tornadus is in the back, right? But we also know it could be Quaquaval, it could be the Landorus, and Crest is good into all of those. So I'm like, okay, I think I'll bring out Crest right now. I still have screens up as well. One of the things that we haven't confirmed yet is Cresselia's speed relative to the Sylveon as well. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe Crest is just faster than Sylveon here, and I just get a double knockout with something like Psychic plus a Facade, right? The main thing here is it also could be Sylveon outspeeding Cresselia and then having Hyper Voice plus Bleak Wind Storm this turn, and I haven't Terra'd yet, and I'm thinking if I get the double knockout here and it's 3v1, I'm probably good, right? So I'm like, okay, I have Electric Terra. Electric Terra is mainly a kind of neutral Terra in this matchup, but it's specifically helpful in allowing me to resist Bleak Wind Storm from Tornadus. So I'm like, because Torn might just want to go for Bleak Wind here, right? And so by going for this, I can angle for a double knockout, which I think is really powerful, because I'm not even convinced like Bleak Wind Hyper Voice knocks out Ursaluna, for example. I don't know if Crest will be able to take this combo, but I'm mainly thinking, well, I haven't Terra'd yet. I think this is a good opportunity to just to cover for Bleak Wind. So we go for the Electric Terra here with Cresselia, and yeah, I think at this point I'm like, oh, Cresselia, like if I had just set up Trick Room and knocked out Serena a little bit earlier on in this game, Ursaluna would have been able to do what I wanted to do, which is just get it out under Trick Room, right? So Tornadus here decides to go for the Taunt, so it's not Bleak Wind, which means I didn't need to Electric Terra there, but I'll still take Taunt rather than seeing Bleak Wind. And Cresselia is faster than the Sylveon. I'm like, okay, great. I get the knockout onto Sylveon, and now I knock out Tornadus with Facade, right? So it's a 3v1. What can Keely have in the back at this point? Sneasel. I don't think Sneasel can win a 1v3. Landorus, which I also struggles. Also don't think he can win a 1v3. And then there is the Quaquaval. I think that's probably the scariest option at this point, right? Especially because I don't have an attacking move on Grimmsnarl other than Fake Out. So I'm like, okay, it's a 3v1 here. Quaquaval is Stellar Terra, so obviously in this situation I could protect Ursaluna and just Psychic Quaquaval. But if Quaquaval reads that, it can just go for Stellar Terra and knock out Cresselia. So I'm thinking in this position, maybe I should just attack with both Pokemon, right? I can just go for Psychic and I can go for the Facade. If Quaquaval reads into Cresselia, or Ursaluna protecting or switching and targets Crest, I should win the game. Because even if you're Focus Sash, I can just Fake Out Substitute, and that wins me the game. And even if you target Ursaluna here, it's not the end of the world, because I will still have Fake Out available the next turn. So the question is, what kind of set is this Quaquaval? Quaquaval decides to just go for that close combat. It does target Ursaluna, so I'm not super stoked to see that. I would have much preferred to see Cresselia getting targeted there. I think mainly what feels bad about this is I could have protected Ursaluna. Protect there would have won the game on the spot, but I didn't feel like I needed to take a risk there, and I could actually lose the game if I protect there and Cresselia goes down, because then you get a Moxie boost, right? And then it's Grim plus Ursaluna, but the Grim doesn't have any attacking move other than Fake Out. And so if I protect there, you knock out Cress, Grim comes in, you can protect in front of the Grim, right? So now my question is, does this Quackable have protect as well? It's Focus Sash, so I'm like, okay, I think it probably does. And at this point, I'm like, oh, I really, really, really wish I had that Spirit Break instead of that Fake Out, because Spirit Break would have guaranteed us a win here. And so once again, like, that's just totally on me. I should have double checked it before the game and just confirmed it, before we actually started. But, you know, once the game starts, it's like I have the wrong set, but like I can't change it, right? That's totally on me for making that error. So Quackable goes for the protect here, and it does have protect, which now means it basically comes down to, can Cresselia survive an attack from the Quackable, right? It still hasn't Stellar either. So the other play I could have made in this situation was actually Reflect, because it just weren't up, and then not Spirit Break, Parting Shot into Quackable. And the idea is set up Reflect and get it down low enough where maybe it can survive an attack, and then I can get a Psychic off. But yeah, Fake Out's my only offensive option here, so I'm like, I have to just go for Reflect and miraculously hope that Cresselia survives. The other downside here is that I'm not running super defensive Cresselia, and so Quackable obviously threatens with a lot of damage here, and it's gotten that Moxie boost as well. I think, yeah, I don't know if there was a way to like win the game 100% of the time, like I said, because I could lose the game to protect Ursaluna, Cresselia getting targeted down earlier with Stellar plus an attack. But it's going to be the Stellar close combat here into Cresselia. Reflect is up, but it's not enough. Cresselia faints. I don't have any attacking moves on Grimmsnarl, and I cannot win this 1v1. So Quackable pulls off a miracle comeback. Keely made all the right decisions in the end game with it. And of course, at this point, I'm like, oh, if I like had saved my Terra on the Ursaluna, if I had Terra'd with Enamorus, like if I had the right move on Grimmsnarl, there were like so many different things where if it was just like one thing that's different, we likely win this one, which is both good and bad. I think it's like, it feels bad because it's like mistakes just never feel good. And I think the most egregious one, I think this end game was a mind game, but I think the most egregious mistake was not going for Moonblast or tearing with Enamorus. I think partially because I should have been able to deduce that Serena was going to be slower since it was so specially bulky, and I should have been doing a better job of like calcing and estimating where the EVs on the Serena were, since we knew how much Ice Beam was doing. So that's it for game one. So at this point we're playing from behind, which doesn't feel good, and I think mentally I'm a little bit fried as well, because one, like, Quackable just 1v3'd me. Two, like, I'm still like, the Grimmsnarl, like, you know, you kind of just have to forget about it, but it's still kind of there in the back of my mind. And three, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? The last game, like, if I just made one better decision at 2 different points, I think we likely are in a super winning spot. But I'm like, look, I think Grimmsnarl is not that great as a lead option, because while it sets up the screens, because I don't have any like value outside of setting up screens, I think I might not want to lead with it. And I think Enamorus is an interesting offensive option, right? Because I know that I can just dish out a lot of damage immediately. One of the other things that I'm thinking about is, well, maybe Pulting and Tauros makes a lot of sense. This is an Intimidator. It's really valuable into the Quackable, right? And if I had that in the end game, it would have been able to get me another Intimidate off. And so I'm like, okay, maybe Grimmsnarl doesn't make the most amount of sense here, because what am I really bringing it for, right? Other than setting up screens. The thing is that screens weren't bad for us in that last game, but Cresselia just like didn't really get to hang around for as long as I've really wanted it to. And so I'm like, but okay, maybe screens are still good, because if I had just like done a little bit better of a job protecting Cress, would have been okay. So you can see I'm really torn between hovering back and forth, but I'm like, okay, you know what? I can also have like more offense if I go Enamorus plus Tauros, Enamorus plus Spectrier. But ultimately, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm running out of time. I didn't bring the Tauros in the last one. Quackable was the main carry for her, so I want an adjustment. I want something that can hit that Quackable and intimidate it and outspeed it. So let me bring Tauros out into the game. Let me lead Enamorus, because this now threatens with a lot of fast-paced offense immediately into Tornadus and Serena, right? So I have to make use of the resources that I have. And one of my key lessons in that last game was like, okay, I didn't go for the Trick Room at the right time. Or with Cresselia, I should say, like, I do have to worry about the double taunt. But I had an angle to potentially set up Trick Room in that last one, so it's like a similar model that I can follow, right? So it's going to be Tornadus plus Serena as a lead once again here. And I am like, okay, you know, Enamorus here should be able to dish out a lot of damage. I do have to think about like whether or not I want to commit the Terra here. I could switch into Tauros or Ursaluna. The risk is just eating up, obviously, a Bleak Wind Storm here immediately, which can be scary. I could Fairy Terra the Enamorus, but the question is that worth it, right? Is the Life Orb Dazzling Gleam actually doing enough? But one of the mistakes I felt like I made in that last game was not going for Terra with Enamorus, and then Serena ends up hanging on with more than I would have liked. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to go for Fairy Terra plus Trick Room here, because basically, in order to deal with this, you'd have to double taunt to Cresselia again. I think there's a good chance you don't double taunt because I had revealed that I was willing to just click Ice Beam on turn 1 last time. And I was like, look, my mistake in game 1 was not tearing Enamorus earlier. This should do a lot more damage now into everything, basically. But Keely does go for taunt into Cresselia, so I'm like, well, this maybe could have been an Ice Beam this turn then. We do have the Mentor, but also could have been a Cresselia switch out, which is something else that I think I could have given some thought to. But Enamorus here just goes for the Dazzling Gleam here. And you can see how bulky the Serena is. Even with Terra, it doesn't do 50%, which is really impressive. We also find out another big reveal, which is Citrus Berry on Tornadus. So very, very specially defensive here, and the double taunt comes out. This mainly feels bad because it could have just been an Ice Beam into Serena, which would have gotten it low enough. I honestly thought that double Life Orb Fairy Terra Gleam would like be close to putting Serena in like 2-hit KO range. Or I should say would be a 2-hit knockout onto Serena, but that's not the case. So at this point, I'm like, I'm a little bit worried about your offense onto my side of the field, right? And I'm thinking like, okay, I can switch in maybe the Tauros now to get an Intimidate off into the Serena, right? Because this time around, I don't have the Reflect, but I think this is also a pretty greedy switch in because a Bleak Wind just does so much damage into the Tauros. The thing is, though, I'm okay with it because I know I should be able to survive, right? And if I knock out the Tornadus here, Tauros survives. I've got Scarf Tauros out with Enamorus. Like, I think I should be in pretty good shape. I think the main debate here is I could just stay in with Cresselia and just like go for Protect with Enamorus and Ice Beam, for example. And I think that's like totally viable of a play as well. But I think Cress is also a good offensive option here. So this just gives me Intimidate to make sure that Serena isn't KOing me, which is good. Even though I know I'm faster than Serena, but it's just Bleak Wind Storm coming out here. And it does do a lot of damage onto both of our Pokemon, and crucially does get that speed drop onto the Tauros, which does not feel great when you're running Choice Scarf Tauros, right? So I go for the Fairy Terra Moonblast here to eliminate Tornadus, and the idea I had here is, look, if I switch in Tauros, as long as you don't get a speed drop, or if you miss, for example, we should be in really good shape, because now you can't Tailwind. So Power Whip comes out, and you can see this is why I switched in Tauros. I wanted to survive this, right? So now Keely does get a free switch in, and it's actually going to be the Landorus reveal here. So I'm like, okay, Landorus. What can you do? You can Earth Power, you can Sandsear Storm, you can Sludge Bomb. In this position, I got a little bit excited about the Choice Scarf Tauros, and I was like, oh, I'm Scarf Tauros. Like, I can just outspeed the Landorus, right? But obviously I have the speed drop here on the Tauros, and so the speed order should be Landorus, then Tauros, then Enamorus, then Serena. But I was like, okay, I think I can just Protect here and go for an attack potentially. But this is greedy, right? Because obviously the Landorus could just go for a Sandsear Storm. It can Earth Power, it can Sludge Bomb into the Tauros slot. And truthfully, this turn, when I was playing it, I had actually forgotten about the speed drop as it happened. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, if you're not Scarf Landorus, I can just outpace you. I can one-shot your Landorus here, right? I can actually even knock out both of your Pokemon with Life Orb Moonblast and a Wave Crash here. And yeah, that's because I didn't double check on that speed drop. And yeah, I had just forgotten about it. So I'm like, oh, Serena protects. Okay, this is fine. Like, you didn't Terra Landorus. Well, I'll just outpace you and KO you. But then Landorus goes for that Sandsear, and I'm like, oh, that's really bad. This turn, the obvious play, and really the safest play, is simply to protect Enamorus, switching Cresselia, right? With that, I get Cress in, I threaten with Ice Beam, super effective damage. I conserve Tauros for the late game as well. But here, I just gave up a Scarf Pokemon. And yeah, I think my brain has just been like kind of fried at this point, because I'm like definitely making a lot more mistakes than normal, and like forgetting about the speed drop as soon as it happened was also bad. I think it's because in my head I conditioned myself to be like, okay, look, like Scarf Lando should be really good here, or sorry, Scarf Tauros should be really good here. But like switching it in on the first place, I think was questionable. In the like, I think I could have just stayed in with Cress, honestly. And now I'm like, okay, I have Cress plus Ursaluna out, and in my head I'm like, okay, I obviously have to respect the threat of the taunt. And while I was playing this game, like I mentioned, I had forgotten about the speed drop on the Tauros. Yeah, so because I had forgotten about it, I was like, wait, you're actually Scarf Landorus? Like, you're a genius. You came up with Scarf Landorus to cover for Scarf Tauros. Like, that's really, really smart. Scarf Landorus is also quite common in VGC as well. So in my head, I was like, okay, it's Scarf Lando. It's locked into Sandsear Storm here. I think you're going to have to switch out. I think Quaquaval is going to be your final Pokemon. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to knock out the Quaquaval as it switches in. I'm not going to try to go for a Trick Room here. And I'm playing from behind, so I'm going to go for an Ice Beam here and a Facade into the Landorus slot. And this will, or sorry, I should say a Psychic and a Facade to cover for Quaquaval. Instead, it's actually Earth Power into the Cresselia, so I think she may have been reading into maybe an ally switch here, which is something I had revealed on Cresselia before. But instead, I get the Psychic off. I would have liked to see a switch into Quaquaval, and I'm like, okay, no switch, but I think it's okay. But we don't knock out with Facade either, which does not feel good. That could have been Ice Beam Facade. I just wasn't sure that would knock out Quaquaval, right? So once again, this is mainly on me having missed that speed drop on Tauros earlier and getting punished like really, really heavily for it because I was assuming it was just going to be Scarf Lando and that they would like definitely switch out here. I kind of get lucky in the sense that Keely went for Earth Power into Cresselia, because if that could have been Earth Power, Power Whip into Ursaluna, that could have been Sludge Bomb into Cresselia. So at this point, I'm like, look, this game does not look great for us, right? I do pressure a double knockout right now with Psychic plus the Facade. It's also important to remember, I already committed my Terra, right? I'm vulnerable to a double up onto either slot. I think Ursaluna protecting, like I didn't protect last turn because I thought the protect was so obvious. But yeah, I think Landorus actually hanging on from that double up I also wasn't anticipating. Like, didn't think he'd be able to take it with the special attack investment I had from Cress. And so now I'm like, look, I'm going to angle to just get a double knockout. Psychic covers for your switch out into the Quaquaval. So I'm going to just go Psychic plus Facade. Keely goes for Sludge Bomb and a Cresselia. And Power Whip. So Power Whip crucially connecting there. And we do get the double knockout here. So I'm like, okay, it's a double knockout, but last time I played a 3v1 against Quaquaval and I lost, and now it's a 2v1, right? So it's looking really, really scary. We have the Facade here into the Serena as well, and that's going to get the knockout. It also could be another Pokemon, right? I'm like, okay, if it's Sylveon in the last one instead, then we should be great. If it's Sneasel, I think we're also okay, because I don't think it can one-shot Cress, and so even though you can one-shot, like, the Ursaluna, it's fine, because 2 Psychics will KO you, but it indeed is that Quaquaval, right? So, I know I'm taunted for one more turn. Last time, I had Ursaluna out in front of the Quaquaval, and I didn't protect with it, right? And it just knocked me out, so I'm like, this time, maybe she'll just attack into it. I can go for a protect here. I'm also thinking about the substitute at this point, of course, because this is not something that I had revealed. But I think, yeah, at this point, I'm still just a little bit flustered because I'm like, oh, I forgot about that speed drop. And the whole time I was trying to figure out, like, what was going on? Like, what am I missing? But it was just, yeah, literally forgetting about Bleakwood speed drop, like, earlier on in the game, which is also something I could have double checked, right? So I'm like, okay, here I can just go for Psychic and Protect. If she targets Ursaluna, game over, right? It's the same situation where it's like a 2v1 and both Pokemon can knock out the Quaquaval. But it's Protect, and I see Protect, I'm like, I could have just gone for Substitute there, right? And I think, truthfully, actually, because she had Focus Sash, I think, like, Quaquaval targeting the Cresselia, just going for Stellar Aqua Step, I think was always okay. The question is whether or not that knocks out. I'm not super physically defensive, though. And because I think, like, that move always wins anyway, yeah, basically I was like, look, I think, like, I need to either protect and hope you attack into me. But now it's like Quaquaval should just be able to get a knockout onto Ursaluna, get a Moxie boost, and I don't think the Cresselia can take a +1 Aqua Step, right? I have more HP this time around, but I'm like, look, I think there's no point in trying to go for anything else. Double Protect makes the most sense here, because if Quaquaval targets Ursaluna and I get the double, then I win the game. But at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh, in all of these games, it's like I had just one different move. Like, I have been playing so off in general, but just one different move in all of these key situations, I'd still be okay. And so I'm like, look, I think, yeah, I have to go for the double. And I think with Crest, it's like, might as well Trick Room, right? If I Trick Room and get the double, then we basically have a guaranteed win. So, yeah. The other thing is, I don't know how much Quaquaval does exactly, but we can assume that it is either Admin or Jolly, right? And max attack. And so I'm assuming, yeah, you know, looking at the calc, should be able to knock out either of our Mons. So Quaquaval finally goes for that Stellar Terra. I think like Keely's play with Quaquaval is honestly just really good, and like I am put into these situations against it in the end game because of like kind of sloppy play before. But Ursaluna goes for the double and actually gets it. I could still lose this if Quaquaval targets Cresselia, but it indeed is close combat into Ursaluna. So we managed to set up Trick Room, and now there's really no way for Quaquaval to win the game. But I'm like, wow, I could have clicked Substitute there earlier with Ursaluna. I just didn't think there was ever a chance I would get it off, and I thought it was more likely for maybe close combat to like go into that slot immediately. Since previously she had shown willingness to target the Ursaluna, but she was just one step ahead, kind of scouting out for the Protect previously, especially since, yeah, I couldn't, do anything other than Psychic with Cresselia there. But miraculously, we've put ourselves in a winning position, but it didn't feel good. Like, this was what I would call a very, very sloppy victory, right? Like, I think 2/3 of the time, Keely should just win this one if I don't get that double Protect. And I had, once again, more counterplay throughout the course of this one. So I think, honestly, at this point, I'm like, wow, my, like, play is just really, really off tonight. And I, like, was like, yeah, I just, like, what is going on, right? I'm, like, not noticing things. I'm, like, missing obvious things. Like, I'm just not playing nearly at 100%. I'm playing, like, yeah, and just, like, making a lot of mistakes. And that happens in Pokemon. I think, like, sometimes you are not going to perform your best. What's important is I was like, look, I was given a miracle here in Game 2. Let me learn from all of these mistakes and let me apply them to the best of my ability to try to do a better job in Game 3. The reality is this has been a really, really close set, and one key decision in both games 1 and 2 would have just resulted in a victory. So if I just sharpen up my play a little bit, things should be a lot better. So going into Game 3, at this point, I'm thinking, how do I take all the mistakes that I've made from the last games, and how do I learn from them, right? What are the tendencies that I've picked up from Keely? One, she obviously really doesn't want Trick Room going up, so it feels like every opportunity she has to taunt Cresselia, she will. So one thing I'm thinking is maybe I can bait the double taunt into Cresselia and hard switch on turn 1 while doing damage with something like Enamorus, for example, right? So I'm thinking, look, I can go with something like the Cresselia plus Enamorus lead again, bait the taunts into Cresselia, switch Cress out on turn 1. And the idea behind this is the way for Keely to deal with Trick Room is to threaten my Cresselia with multiple taunts, right? But I can stop this if you don't break that Mental Herb. If you don't break that Mental Herb and I get a knockout onto one of your 2 taunters, you shouldn't be able to deny Trick Room. So, new game plan now is to try to conserve the Mental Herb, bait out a double taunt, and then bring Cresselia out afterwards and then set up Trick Room. So, that's what I'm thinking at this point. But yeah, I think it's like throughout this entire set, like I feel like the resources I have are actually quite excellent in terms of Pokemon, but I have just not been executing well at all. And Paldean Tauros, I think, also a really, really good option here. And like in game 1 or game 2, Paldean Tauros just didn't really do enough, right? So I think the 2 things I could go for here, number 1 is just stay in with Cresselia and just eat up the taunts once again and go for something like Fairy Terra Dazzle plus Ice Beam, or Fairy Terra Moonblast Ice Beam, for example, although I'm not even sure that would get the knockout. So the idea is, okay, let me just try to like maximize damage with Enamorus here, and if I can like get some chip damage off and bait out taunts on turn 1 and conserve Mentor on Cresselia, I think we'll be in really, really good shape. The risk here is I am potentially switching in Paldean Tauros or Ursaluna. Both of those are weak to grass type attacks, and so you can get a Power Whip into them. Like, you could theoretically Bleak Wind and Power Whip. It's just such a hard prediction, right? And it's a prediction that would probably lose the game on the spot if you don't cover for the Trick Room option because of how good Trick Room is in this matchup. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for the switch into Tauros. I'm going to go for the Moonblast here. I'm hoping with Moonblast, this is a 2-hit knockout onto the Serena, right? The idea behind this is, okay, then I get Tauros out. Now next turn I have 2 things that outpace your Serena and you're intimidated. You might feel the force to like actually click Tailwind. Maybe you'll just Bleak Wind. Intimidating a Serena is always good as well. Tornadus does not go for Bleak Wind. Fortunately, that could have been really scary. It indeed is going to be the taunt on the Tauros, and Moonblast is going to target the Serena here and dish out almost half, but it's not 50%, which is a little bit concerning as well. However, it indeed is the double taunt here, so the game plan is working out, right? The idea is, okay, now I have Crest with Mentorb in the back. Like, this should be a lot easier to set up Trick Room this time around. Now I'm like, okay, I've gotten Tauros out. You might feel threatened by something like a like Tauros just dishing out damage. So I could go like Water Terra Tauros and try to knock out the Tornadus. I'm thinking I can actually switch back out into Cresselia right now, because I think Tauros was potentially the most important Pokemon in game 2, and I just like let it go for free, right? And I'm like, now you're intimidated with Serena, your Bleak Winds aren't doing that much, so I think I can pivot back out into that Cresselia to eat up your damage, and I can threaten with either a Fairy Terra, Life Orb Moonblast into Serena, which then should get the knockout for sure, or I can Dazzling Gleam if I think Serena might protect this turn, right? So I end up thinking that Serena is going to protect. I don't want to just commit the Terra here, and then I, like Moonblast into a protect. And Serena at this point isn't a huge threat to us either. So Serena goes for the protect there, and I'm okay with this. Tornadus goes for a Bleak Wind, and we are actually going to dodge it with the Enamorus, which is lucky mainly from a speed perspective, because now I have pinned Keely into a tough spot, right? I still have Mentorb available. So what this means is we know Enamorus is faster than the Serena. So with that, I can just go Fairy Terra Moonblast into Serena and Trick Room, right? If you go Taunt into Cresselia, Enamorus just outpaces you and then gets the knockout onto the Serena. If you Tailwind, you only get Taunt on one Pokemon. If you Bleak Wind Storm, you can Bleak Wind, and then, but the thing is, like, I still have Mentorb available on Cresselia, right? So I think at this point, I'm like, I finally figured it out. This is how I can safely set up Trick Room in this game. And the fast Enamorus, a huge piece of this week, fortunately. I think, yeah, knowing the speed stat here, knowing that I can outspeed Serena is huge. And so now I'm fairly confident, right? Because so far in this battle, like, I haven't gotten Trick Room up, right? Like, Trick Room was the main win condition, and in 2 games in this set, I have not set it up. So I'm like, I finally learned from all of these errors. Now I think it should be a guaranteed Trick Room here. So Enamorus is going to go for that Fairy Terra, and now, of course, threaten with damage into the Serena slot, enough for a knockout. Serena protected as well. So, yeah, it's just going to be Bleak Wind Storm here. Yeah, the scary thing here is if you get Speed Drop onto Enamorus, which does happen, and if Serena were to target that slot, but it's just Bleak Wind plus the Taunt. So, like, this is fine, right? Because now the Speed Drop, if anything, actually benefits the Enamorus, because it can function under Trick Room. But Enamorus gets this Life Orb Moonblast off. And yeah, I think this Serena was just such a thorn for us because of its special defense investment. And yeah, it's like really good prep, I think, to have the EV spread that it did specifically. The upside is with that EV spread, it means that I can outspeed it with max speed Enamorus. So now Trick Room finally goes up. I'm feeling way more comfortable than any other turn, any other situation in this set. And I'm like, okay, I think it's like so hard for her side to win once Trick Room goes up because everything is just like relatively physically frail. Like the thing to note is, of course, if you're specially defensive, you're not physically defensive, right? Landers comes out now, but I know that I've got the Ice Beam for the Landers here, right? So I can threaten with Ice Beam. Of course, the Landers here could consider going for a Ghost Terra, which is certainly a possibility. I think here I also have the ability to consider something like Lunar Blessing, but because the Mentorb now has been committed on Cresselia, Tornadus could theoretically just go for another Taunt onto the Cresselia, which wouldn't feel great. And I wouldn't want to just waste a turn, right? Especially when I have offense being exerted right now. So I'm like, look, I think like Tornadus shouldn't really dish out that much damage. Enamorus is in a really good spot, right? It should just outpace everything under Trick Room, especially now that you've actually dropped my speed in case you have like a Sylveon waiting in the back. Although at this point, I'm thinking it's probably going to be the Quaquaval in the back. So I'm like, you know what? I know this Ice Beam from Cresselia is more offensive than she might anticipate. It will just knock out Landorus. So I can just go for Ice Beam onto Landorus here and pick up a knockout onto it should it choose to not Terra here, right? You can see me debating between Landorus and Tornadus, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to Ice Beam Dazzling Gleam. This covers for potential Ghost Terra on the Landorus as well. And it's actually Substitute Citrus Tornadus, which I think is a really clever tech to try to stall out Trick Room. But with Landorus not protecting or terraing here, we just got a knockout onto it. The worst case scenario here is likely Landorus goes for a Terra, and then Dazzle plus Ice Beam doesn't actually get the knockout. And that might be the case because like the Enamorus here is going to be timid rather than modest. And I think modest may have actually been a game changer for us throughout the set as well. But yeah, I really wanted the max speed. But Dazzling now knocks out Tornadus' sub, and we still have so many turns of Trick Room left to work with. So assuming Quaquaval's the last one, like, yeah, just Cresselia and Enamorus alone can win from this position. So yeah, I think it like took me a while to get here. I think I just did not really think about double taunt. And I was also like, okay, like Cresselia's fine. It does so much damage, but the Serena special defense, and I think, yeah, just like a really sloppy play from games 1 and 2. I was like, I really need to clean things up. And like, I was granted a chance to win this set after game 2, right? So I'm like, at this point, the only way I could see Keely winning is if she gets like infinite protects, but even then, like, I still have the Tauros in the back as well. So I'm like, okay, the Tornadus has, substitute, taunt, bleak wind. It's going to just keep subbing. That's fine. Here I also anticipated the Quackable would protect, so I was like, instead of doubling into it, I can go for a Lunar Blessing. I think it's also honestly probably fine to just go Psychic there, but the Lunar Blessing just heals up the Enamorus. Make sure I don't faint to like a Bleak Wind, for example. And this is just, yeah, like, should put us in a really, really good spot. So I think it just, it goes to show how good Trick Room was in this matchup and how I should have, like, maybe put a little bit more planning into guaranteeing Trick Room. Like, I think it was just the combination of double taunt from Serena Tornadus as well as the super, super special bulk that caught me off guard. But yeah, I think now I'm like, okay, well, I don't really see how you stop Psychic plus Dazzling Gleam. There's no Terras that really save you at this point either. Quackable needs to go for a double, needs to go for a triple, really. And even if you get all of those, Toro should just win this one. So this one finally felt good. I was like, okay, now I'm playing on my A game. Like, I think all the decisions made in this game were fine. Like, I feel grateful to have been able to gotten into this spot because, in a lot of the scenarios, like, I end up just losing the set 0-2, right? And I actually think the prep was fine. I think, like, the max speed Enamorus was a really, really good call that I'm happy with. I think Scarf, actually, Tauros was really good as well. It's just a shame, like the speed drop happened in game 2. But overall, I'm like, look, I actually think our sets were fine. And then, like, sub on Ursaluna also would have just won us the game in game 2, right? But I didn't go for it, and I think I just should have. I didn't go for it because I was like, I'm like losing the scenario where you just target into the Ursaluna, and that's what she did in game 1, right? But yeah, we do end up winning the set 2-1. But it was a really, really big nail biter, and like, this is a great example of a Pokemon set where even though I won, I'm like very disappointed in the outcome, mainly because I think like I made a lot of like mistakes. The good thing is it's like easy to see where those mistakes happened, right? Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So the Melbourne Rotoms are now 4-1, and we have secured a spot in the playoffs. Huge props to Keely and the prep that she put in this week. We were one double protect away from just losing 0-2. I think I am mainly frustrated at myself in this set for one, like having accidentally brought the wrong Grimmsnarl set. That's just something I can double check for sure before getting into the game. And then two, like the good thing is I can point to exactly the moments in games 1 and 2 where I could have just like sharpened up my play, right? Like going for Fairy Terra or Moonblast in game 1 to knock out Serena, setting up Trick Room and Cresselia. And then in game 2, I think there were a bunch of different things, like switching Tauros in was a little bit careless, and then like missing the speed drop was also careless. So yeah, I definitely was just not like fully locked in this week, and that's totally on me. Sometimes this happens in VGC tournaments as well, where I find myself like not really playing super well, but if you are able to lock in at some point and be able to eventually figure it out, it's great. The reality though is in this one, it's like I needed a double protect to even get to that game 3. And so there's a good, a lot of the times I just lose this set 0-2. The good thing is I think the prep was good. Enamorus was fantastic with the max speed. We didn't get to use some of the other tricks, but like, yeah, Tauros with Choice Scarf would have been excellent if Bleak Wind didn't drop her speed. Sub on Ursaluna, I could have gone for in game 2 as well, for example. Cresselia maybe need a little bit more special attack investment, but yeah, ultimately I think it's like we definitely had more than enough tools to win this one. My execution was just not the best, but overall, at the end of the day, it is a win, but a lot to learn from it. And yeah, I'm at least happy to secure a spot in the playoffs and eager to continue our journey from here. So good games to Keely, and thank you so much as always for tuning in.